Well, Michael Schumacher on pole by 0.4 of a second. Great effort, and did the least amount of laps than anybody to achieve it. Raikkonen on the front row with him. Good effort. Barrichello, Schumacher, Ralph, Montoya, Coulthard. Truly, Eddie Irvine. Great for Jaguar up there in 8th spot. Salo, Button, De La Rosa. Another Jaguar in 11th. McNish, Fisichella, Panis, Sato, Mass, Heinfeld, Mark Webber and Davidson in the Minardis.
Amazing to think that Michael Schumacher has never taken pole at Spa.
No, and he loves this. It is one of the great circuits. I mean, it's just, I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, they're buggering up circuits left, right and centre by whacking chicanes everywhere. They've ruined Eau Rouge a little bit. From what I can gather now, everyone's taking Eau Rouge flat chat. The cars have got that much grip now and they've flattened off the exit, whereas in the past it used to separate the men from the boys. I mean, Villeneuve wrote 2 cars off going through their flat. I still think he's one of the bravest there is in a cockpit. But now they've made it so everyone's virtually going through their quick. I do like what they've done to the bus stop. That was a stupid little corner, always has been for years. They've made it into a lot more flowing corner now, which I think will make for better racing.
Just before we go to the points of interest, a very dear friend of this network and also Jonesy and myself, Barry Sheene, of course, has announced that he has a problem with cancer. He's vowing to fight that, as he's fought very bravely every injury he's ever had. And to Barry Sheene and his entire family, and from all of the people here at the Nine Network, all the motorsport fans around Australia, and of course the world, we wish him a really good fight in his recovery.
Oh, he'll do it. I mean, he is a fighter, as you quite rightly said, and if anyone can knock it on the head, Bazza will.
All right, Baz, so we're thinking of you, mate. Rob Ewan has caught up in a crash at La Source in yesterday's Formula 3000 race and was never able to recover. He finished 14th a lap down, though he beat teammate Mario Haberfield home. Now, James Courtney has some work to do this weekend in the British Formula 3 Championships. He collided with arch-rival Robbie Kerr on the opening lap of the race at Snetton, that's race 1, but managed to salvage 2 points. Unfortunately, Kerr has pole for the 2 remaining races, with Courtney back in 5th and 10th. More driver news for 2003. Sauber have signed Heinz Harald Frentzen. He's been everywhere. That's where he started, actually. Depart the Nick Heidfeld next season, with Felipe Massa offered a testing role, but doubtful he might take that. Olivia Panis will go to Toyota to replace Mika Salo, who has been paid out of the last year of his contract. The Finn has chosen to retire, saying he always wanted to finish his career at Toyota. With Alan McNish's contract expiring, the team are talking to several young drivers, including current Minardi star in Alex Davidson. Now, he's an interesting character. I mean, he's just basically come into Formula 1 and you know they're talking to him.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I mean, OK, fair enough, McNish, if they didn't think he was performing all that well, that's fine. You know, let him go. But I would have kept Salo in there because of the continuity. He knows everybody at the Formula 1 team. He could have been an enormous help to a young driver coming in. I think to replace 2 drivers in one foul swoop is not a really good idea.
All right, Paul Stoddard confirmed during the week that Alex Young will be back for Monza and the rest of the season. Now, there was some talk last round in the Hungaroring that they had a painted logo on the track surface. Now, it was a dry race, so it was okay. Here, they've had a bit of mist and fog around in the early stages leading up to today, and I believe the drivers insisted that it be taken away.
Yeah, quite rightly so. I mean, this place is notorious. It can rain on one half of the circuit and be perfectly dry on the other. The weather here at best is unpredictable, and to have paint on the surface, you know, you're just looking for trouble because you just don't get any traction on a painted surface. It's as simple as that. All
right, should be a good race. It's a great racetrack. Let's go now to James, Alan and Martin Brundle.
Sight watching all these guys running into the last horse hairpin. Now we're looking now at the bus stop chicane. This is where the change has been made that Martin in particular and Mark were very unhappy about. The turn immediately right from where Schumacher is to go into the pit lane. We'll see it. Obviously it'll play its role in the pit stop strategy, but that's the new modifications there.
It wasn't as much as that I was unhappy about it. I couldn't understand why they'd bothered to change it, really, and the new pit lane to your right-hand side there. I don't have to drive it, I just have to commentate on it, and I think it may, there'll be wet days here where it'll cause a few dramas, but so be it. It all adds to the excitement of the race. It just seemed that some of these racetracks are becoming too anaesthetised, and they're becoming, they're taking too many dangers away. You don't want to see drivers hurt, but at the same time you want to see some challenges out there. Nonetheless, the rest of the track still remains a supreme challenge.
Starting then from his 5th pole position of the season, Michael Schumacher. This is the one he wants. He wanted to win Germany. He'd never done that before in a Ferrari. Never been on pole here before. He's done it yesterday. Can he make it 10 wins in a season? One light is on, 2, 3. The anticipation builds. Go! Great start from Schumacher. Raikkonen cuts across to slice out Barrichello, but Barrichello is through. Raikkonen can't get round him, and Montoya well up as well. He's inside his teammate. You can see the two Renaults attacking hard. Eddie Irvine in the mix as well. A great start from Barrichello, and a great start from Montoya, who's challenging on the run down to the Rouge Hep. Backs out of it, and that's a wise move.
No, I think you'll find it was Montoya that stayed on it, and Ralf Schumacher just keeping Coulthard out of the racing line on the way into Eau Rouge. So Michael Schumacher then comfortably leads from Rubens Barrichello. Indeed, Raikkonen did suffer down to that first corner, and now Coulthard got a slingshot on the Williams and moves up to 5th place already. The two Renaults had a tremendous start, but couldn't do anything with it when they arrived into the last horse hairpin. But still then, truly very much in contention behind the Williams.
Michael Schumacher leads, Barrichello 2nd, Raikkonen 3rd, Montoya 4th, 5th is Coulthard, 6th Ralf Schumacher, 7th Trulli, 8th Irvine, 9th Jenson Button, and 10th Mika Salo. A terrific start then for Juan Montoya, but also, as you say, for David Coulthard. And Ralf Schumacher just slipping back a little bit from his grid slot.
Yes, Ralf Schumacher, the big loser of the top 6 on the grid, no doubt about that. Looks like Eddie Irvine had a reasonable start. He's currently 8th. There's a Toyota in there somewhere. Maybe there's some overtaking been happening through this middle sector of the lap. And look then at the lead the two Ferraris have already, as Raikkonen will take a little bit of time to get those Michelins fully up to speed. If it happens in the same way that we've seen in previous Grand Prix, the Bridgestones tend to give instant grip. The Michelins come on a little bit stronger a few laps into the race.
Well, all season long we've seen Bridgestone providing Ferrari and its other teams with a very consistent tyre that lasts very well throughout the race. Very even performance, particularly on the Ferraris. But here this weekend there has been a little bit of blistering through free practice on the Bridgestone tyres, and that's certainly something that McLaren and Williams will be looking to see more of. They want the Bridgestones to start giving up performance to give them a chance to attack. But Michael Schumacher is attacking very hard. He looks like he's driving qualifying level laps of intensity, pushing on as he goes down the long straight towards Les Combes. Look at the gap already between himself and Rubens Barrichello in 2nd place.
Yes, he pulled a 2.2 second lead out in the first lap alone in just 4.3 miles. But this, I think, is going to be the race of the afternoon. The two McLarens and the two Williams, I'm absolutely sure, are going to have similar speed. But can they keep those Ferraris anywhere near inside? The winner, really, from the start, is pretty much even Stevens. A place or two won, a place or two lost. But Heidfeld moved from 18th to 15th to move up 3. He was the star of the first lap. The rest of them really just juggling around their grid slots.
Generally speaking this season, the difference in performance between qualifying and the race has been... Oh, and one of the McLarens is Raikkonen slowing.
Raikkonen made a mistake, I think, James. I think Raikkonen ran wide into the Pouhon corner, just got it out of shape, and that allowed then Montoya to go through. So it'd be good to see a replay of that. I think you'll find Raikkonen made a mistake.
Well, he's still going strongly, so you have to presume that's what happened. But he suddenly seemed to go slowly on the outside. Maybe he got a bit crossed up, and that allowed Montoya through, up into 3rd place. Raikkonen then down from 2nd on the grid to 4th on the racetrack on lap 2.
Blanchimont corner, even in the slipstream of another car, there's more than enough downforce at 190 miles an hour to keep the car well and truly glued to the track. That's the famous line where it would actually have enough downforce to drive along the ceiling at that speed. It's the downforce far in excess of the weight of the car. But Raikkonen then has had a very untidy first 2 laps. That's a shame.
It is a shame. Here's a replay. You can see, just seemed to not have the speed coming out of the Pouhon corner on the run down to Fagnes, and that allowed Montoya, who just dived down past him, to take 3rd off him. Look at Coulthard, though. He's right on the back of Kimi Raikkonen. He was 0.6 of a second slower than him in qualifying yesterday, and that's a big chunk of time to give away to your teammate. But today he looks very racy, Coulthard.
Well, Coulthard tends to be a better racer than qualifier, but don't forget he was on the more durable tyre than Raikkonen anyway, and that may pay off for him this afternoon. And look then, Raikkonen tried to squeeze the Ferrari of Barrichello for second place, didn't work out, and truly bolting down the outside, looked like he was going to make 3 or 4 places and got it all out of shape in the blue and yellow Renault, and therefore the Renaults lost out. Looked like they were really, now watch them look, and Schumacher getting away extremely well. Raikkonen realising he's immediately got to cover his line, but he couldn't squeeze Barrichello hard enough. And watch then, there's Montoya coming through to take Ralph, and down the outside, the blue Renault of Trulli, but then they just filed up along the inside of him and got a better slingshot out, got on the power earlier, and Coulthard then now chasing down 4th place man Raikkonen.
Yes, it looked like going down the apex side into the first corner was the way to go. It certainly benefited Coulthard and Montoya from the looks of things. Nice try by Trulli, but it didn't quite pay off for him. He's still in 7th place, 42 laps to go. This is lap 3. Michael Schumacher 2.4 seconds now ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Montoya 3rd, Raikkonen still down to 4th, 5th Coulthard, 6th Ralf Schumacher. Trulli, as I mentioned, in 7th. Eddie Irvine holding on in the Jaguar in 8th place. Jenson Button up to 9th now, and Salo down to 10th.
I think it's Kimi Raikkonen's fuel flap is open. Strangely, it's on the wrong side of the car. That's not the refueling side of the car. One of the 2 McLarens had the fuel flap down, and that will very much hurt the aerodynamics at these kind of top speeds.
We've seen that a few times this weekend. Oh, that's the problem.
They went way too deep into the first part of Pouhon, did an incredible job to save that one.
Well, yesterday in qualifying, on I think his 2nd or 3rd run, Raikkonen was very, very wide through Pouhon, wasn't he? Got away with it in a light car, perhaps just got caught out today with the extra weight, I don't know.
No, it's very easy because you're braking downhill. It's so easy to just go a little bit deep, a little bit late on the brakes down into that corner, and very rarely you get away with it, frankly. That was an amazing save.
Schumacher, though, pushing on at the front. Not surprisingly, setting fastest lap so far, 49.066, but they'll get a lot quicker than that as the race plays out. Now, we were talking about how, generally speaking, throughout the season, McLaren has had a strong race performance relative to its qualifying. The larger gap for the Williams team between what they can do in qualifying and what they can do in the race, that certainly was a positive indicator for McLaren going into today's race. They want to keep the Williams guys behind them as we ride on board at the start then with David Coulthard.
And look then, that is truly coming through. We've seen that Renault so far starting. Coulthard says, OK, you go down there then, my friend. I'll have a little look up the inside. A slightly wise ahead then. And truly probably feeling somewhat damaged by his very poor start in Hungary, where 5 cars passed him in the first 3 corners, really having a major go there, but unfortunately losing out one more time. The Ferraris lead by, Michael leading Barrichello by 2.7 seconds, but sadly the Williams a further 3.5, make that now 5 and a bit seconds down the road.
Would have been quite interesting if the Belgian director had continued that replay there from Coulthard's point of view, because Ralf Schumacher was on the left and the wall was coming towards, and I'd like to see what actually happened there. Obviously Coulthard was forced to get off the throttle, otherwise he would have hit the wall.
Yes, they went side by side down the hill into Eau Rouge with Ralf Schumacher having the racing line. We may see a replay of that. Strange, something on the camera lens there, wasn't it? Don't think there's any rain of any sort out there, but certainly the camera lens looking a bit dirty down there. Raikkonen a second behind Montoya, Coulthard less than a second in 5th place behind Ralf Schumacher. Trulli 7th, Irvine 8th. They're really staying in touch, as is Jenson Button and Mika Salo. So quite a good run there from 3rd place through to indeed Heidfeld in 15th place. Barely a second between each of those cars.
Mark Webber being pushed off the track. It's been a difficult weekend for the Australian. He had gearbox problems, different gearbox problems on Friday and Saturday. Lost an awful lot of time. He only managed 18 laps, in fact, of free practice before he went out to qualify. In view of that, his performance yesterday was pretty special. Under 4 seconds off the pace around a long lap like this. But clearly, the reliability gremlins are not working. Sorry, they're working overtime rather at the Minardi garage, certainly in his car. Anthony Davidson's had a trouble-free run though. He's still going along nicely in 19th place. And you're talking about the Jaguar of Irvine and Renault of Button, and they're on the same sort of pace as the McLarens and the Williams at the moment, using the same Michelin tyres. So certainly in terms of the sector times we're looking at here, they're holding on quite well.
They are indeed. Michael Schumacher does a new fastest lap, then the first man into the 1:48. Gets perilously close to those bollards on the way into the bus stop, so he's on it. Pulled another 0.3 of a second out of his teammate Barrichello for a 3-second lead now. Ted is in the pits, of course.
Martin, Michael Schumacher's pace really is the benefit of starting on those new Bridgestones, but I think he's going to have to calm this pace down, because he is, as we said, on the less durable tyre. But I think should he get into problems with blisters, the benefit is that he's always got Rubens Barrichello to act as his rear gunner. So that's important that Barrichello got ahead of Raikkonen. But the first stops you'll be seeing in about 10 laps.
Yes, and to add to that, with a 3-second lead, he can choose his own braking points. He doesn't have to go defensive anywhere, which tends to very much overheat your tyres in the early stages of a Grand Prix, where you're having to lunge at the brake pedal and move around the racetrack defending. So Michael has got a comfort zone that will enable him to just drive a little bit more sensibly on those softer tyres. So Schumacher looking good at the front.
Lap 6 then of 44 in the Belgian Grand Prix. This is the battle for 13th, 14th and 15th places, and unfamiliar numbers for drivers. There's Mark Webber just retiring from this race. Unfamiliar places for Fisichella, Villeneuve and Massa this season, and that's got a lot to do with the performance of the Michelin tyres on their rival teams. It certainly pushed them back on the grid. Fisichella had a troubled practice session with an off, which was very much his own mistake in qualifying. And also Honda have blown 3 engines this weekend across Friday and Saturday, which is not particularly good for these guys either. But these guys struggling then in 13th, 14th and 15th at the moment, but very, very close together on the racetrack. Well, Anthony Davidson is 19th and the final runner at the moment, but very much keeping the BAR of Panis and the Jordan of Sato rather in sight. He's lapping at the same speed as them, so good run from him. Other Brits then, Coulthard 5th, Irvine 8th, Button 9th, McNish 12th. So solid run this afternoon from the Brits. Villeneuve getting very close up behind Fisichella then as they went into the bus stop. This is going to be an interesting scrap. You can just sense it, can't you? Villeneuve wants by as he goes into the last horse hairpin, different line from Fisichella. Interesting rumour kicking around the paddock this morning, incidentally, Martin, as they rush down the hill towards Eau Rouge, that there's quite a lot of pressure to try and push Jacques Villeneuve towards Toyota, the one seat available there. They've hired Olivier Panis, so effectively they would get the BAR team of 2002 for next year. Yes, I think Bernie spread that one amongst. Look at the slipstream, and Fisichella goes, and that's not legal. You're not allowed to keep moving. That's twice he's done it in the same lap. Fisichella wandering around the racetrack like a Formula 4 driver, and you cannot do that. And if the stewards are watching that, he should be reprimanded. And Villeneuve will not be a happy bunny. He certainly had a lot more speed. But I think Bernie Ecclestone somewhat mischievously said to a few journalists over dinner last night, what would happen if on the Villeneuve to Toyota story. Seems unlikely to me. I don't know why or how Villeneuve would be moved out of this BAR contract, but it does seem to be less than concrete, doesn't it, that he'll be in that car next year? Definitely, it's very much a rumour, but then again the whole situation surrounding Villeneuve and British American racing seems to be based on public debate and antipathy, and the word possibly that Villeneuve just becoming a little bit tired of all this talk. But having said that, he's on a guaranteed $19 million next year, and that would be very hard to walk away from, because it's hard to imagine Toyota giving him that much. This is lap 8 though. Michael Schumacher 4.3 clear now of Rubens Barrichello. We've still got the Williams of Montoya in 3rd, then 4th still Kimi Raikkonen, just over a second behind the Colombian. David Coulthard a second behind Raikkonen, and Ralf Schumacher a couple of seconds behind Coulthard. That's the top 6, and Fisichella gets a mistake there. Yeah, Fisichella went in deep, and he had Villeneuve all over his mirrors, just dancing around, trying to distract him, and distract him he did. Now Villeneuve can have a go at the inside, but he's covered, and Fisichella once again struggling to get the car in, and now he's lost it. So clever stuff from Villeneuve. He just harassed the young Roman until he finally made a big enough mistake to let him through. Well, you could see it coming. Villeneuve is clear into 13th place, and Fisichella really been struggling all weekend. And now he's got Massa right up his backside. Massa taking an outside line, and he breezes past the Jordan. Yeah, you'd have to say that that Honda has not got enough power, and that Jordan has too much wing or too much drag, because that was rather too easy, wasn't it? So Fisichella very much under pressure. He does not have any straight line speed. He's now got Heidfeld closing in on him as well. Terrible qualifying session for the Sauber team, right down there in 17th and 18th places on the grid. Very unfamiliar territory for them. So scrap at the back, but at the front, the world champion is pulling away. 4.3 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Montoya still in third place. This is lap 8 of the Belgian Grand Prix. Jarno Trulli in the Renault keeping in touch with the BMW Williams of Ralf Schumacher, and then Eddie Irvine and Jenson Button as well, also keeping in touch. All these boys on Michelin tyres, and then here come the Bridgestone Brigade behind them. It literally is an us and them situation.
Michael Schumacher's 1:48.3, then smashing the Spa lap record. Of course, the track's a little bit faster this year, but nonetheless, that is a stunning lap time. On board with David Coulthard coming down towards the Fagnes chicane. His teammate ahead of him. Pretty even Stevens, isn't it? Despite them being on different tyres, they've obviously got advantages and disadvantages through the lap, but at the end of the day, they're both lapping in the mid to low 1-minute 50s. Mind you, that's at the same time as Michael Schumacher's lapping in the low 1-minute 48, just to give you a feel for the brilliant speed that the man out front has.
Just removing a tear off then, David Coulthard on the run down to Blanchimont. Plastic film over the front of his visor. He's 10 laps into the race, so it's time to clear one off. Lap 10 here at Spa-Francorchamps. You're riding on board with David Coulthard. Kimi Raikkonen was second on the grid, is now fourth. He's ahead of us as we go through Eau Rouge. But up front, Michael Schumacher has done 7 consecutive sector times that are the fastest we've seen all throughout the race, and he's done 2 consecutive lap records. He is pushing very, very hard indeed. And you just think back to some of those conversations, some of those incidents of Michael Schumacher where he was pushing unbelievably hard. If something went wrong, Ross Brawn, the technical director at Ferrari, would always say, well, that's Michael, you can't slow him down. He always has to push to the limit, and he's certainly doing that at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, and the really bad news is if those softer tyres were going to blister, it would have happened by now, would be showing up. With the high speed, very long corners you have here, tyres quickly blister if they're going to, and you end up losing 2, 3, sometimes 4 seconds per lap with a rally style of car rather than a Formula 1 car in terms of the rear grip. But Michael just getting faster and faster and faster, and another new lap record is on its way when he completes this lap. And Barrichello then, as you can see, is 6 seconds behind him and 11 seconds ahead of third place man Montoya.
Yes, it's a mesmerising performance so far. It's still a long way to go in this 44-lap race. Spa-Francorchamps has a history of throwing up some odd results and some strange happenings. But Louise is down there with Mark Webber.
Mark, first retirement of the day. I understand it was more gearbox problems, is that right?
Yeah, it looks like it. We had a bad miss shift the lap before, and also a bad shift in the last horse, and then coming down here, she let go for good. But yeah, it's been an amazing weekend. We've had a lot of issues and really unlike our car.
Best racetrack in the world, and you only get to play for a couple of laps. How frustrating is that?
Yeah, very frustrating, yeah. I was looking forward to, obviously running to the end. The track would have some nice grip at the end of... But anyway, they're out there, I'm not. It's a shame.
Cheers, Mark.
Eddie Irvine then maintaining 8th position, in with a shout of some World Championship points this afternoon, and how well would that go down? It's certainly Jaguar need it, Formula 1 needs it, we need it on F1 ITV. Another one of the British teams, even if they're American owned, going well. So would like to see that today. But Irvine then having the best weekend of the year for the Jaguar team, has to be.
Absolutely. He was saying after qualifying yesterday that apart from Magny-Cours, this is definitely his best shot, Jaguar's best shot at getting some World Championship points. Slightly unexpected, but they've made some changes to the front suspension of this Jaguar, particularly with the steering, which seems to have helped just to get the back end of the car to follow the front through the corners, which might sound simple, but it's been a very difficult thing for Jaguar throughout this season. Their performance in qualifying yesterday was absolutely excellent.
Button slowing, isn't he? Yeah, Button slowing. Problem then for the Renault of Jenson Button was in 9th place, just a few tenths behind Eddie Irvine, and just as he was coasting, just as he was preparing for Pau, The car just lost its speed and quite clearly will not make it back to the pits. That's about nearly as far away from the pits as he could possibly be.
9th place then. Jenson Button retires from the Grand Prix. Our second retirement after Mark Webber with his gearbox problem. This is lap 12, and that's frustrating for Jenson Button. Definitely in with a shout of some points today.
Michael Schumacher then, a 1 minute 47.8, another new fastest lap, and another new lap record, even though the track is that little bit faster this year. Still stunning lap times. The really bad news is that's 4 seconds a lap faster than the guys who are running 7th, 8th and 9th. 4 seconds a lap, James, in a Formula 1 car. What on earth's going on?
Well, this guy's pushing hard is what's going on. Talking in the press briefing yesterday at the Williams team headquarters garage here, Patrick Head was asked what made this car so special as Jacques Villeneuve closes in, I think, on Alan McNish. It's the battle for 11th place, and Villeneuve having another fighting performance, but there's nothing wrong with the power of that Toyota engine, and certainly Alan McNish looks as though he's going to benefit from that on the long straight run down to Les Combes. Villeneuve still letting him know he's there though. But going back to Patrick Head, he was saying there's no one thing in that Ferrari that's particularly special. Nothing you can look at and copy and sketch. It's just they've maximised absolutely every element of the car, and like an orchestra, every bit of it is playing perfectly together, and that's what makes it special. It's also one of the things that makes it so hard to beat. Yeah,
let's hope by the law of diminishing returns they haven't got very many areas to improve it for next year, and some of the other teams can catch up. But the Honda engine in the back of Villeneuve's car doesn't seem to be down on power at all, does it? Because that is absolutely breezing along nicely. So Honda versus Toyota there in the screen. McNish 12th, 11th, I'm sorry, Villeneuve 12th, and Villeneuve having a solid race coming through the pack.
So Alan McNish has been told going into this Grand Prix weekend that he's no longer required as a racing driver for Toyota next year. Also his teammate Mika Salo being given the same bullet, and a slightly surprising decision to get rid of both drivers, Martin.
Absolutely surprising decision, and I think some of the senior people in the team over in Cologne were equally as surprised as anybody else. I'm led to believe that decision was driven from Tokyo, from Toyota HQ over there, and it doesn't make sense. You need some continuity, and as I said yesterday, the replacing Salo McNish with Panis and another, I can't see the net gain there. I really can't.
Been a funny sort of up and down season for the Toyota team. Started strongly, they were able to get a point in the first Grand Prix in Australia, had one other points finish after that, but since then quite a lot of retirements and quite a lot of struggles for them. Very uneven in qualifying as well, but not a bad first season for the team. But certainly when you're in the pit lane with them, they do look as though they know what they're doing. They're very, very slick operation, and they're looking very much the part here in Formula One, and everybody in the paddock's sure that they're going to start making some big steps forward over the next couple of seasons. Villeneuve closing down McNish still then. The battle for 11th place. This is lap 13. Michael Schumacher leading by 10 seconds from Rubens Barrichello, who's 14.1 now ahead of Juan Montoya. Kimi Raikkonen still with Montoya though, and Coulthard also in close attendance. Ralf Schumacher is still 6th. At the moment we've got McLaren Williams, neither team really having the upper hand.
Another new lap record then for Michael Schumacher, 1:47.706 this time around. Jacques Villeneuve's right front tyre won't be worth too much soon. If he keeps locking it up like that, he'll start to generate understeer. Then when the front of your car starts sliding, it generates more understeer. It's like a snowball effect. You have to be careful, just keep locking the wheels up. No ABS brakes, of course, on a Formula 1 car. There's confirmation of that new fastest lap, and Michael Schumacher now leading by 11.2 seconds and romping away from his teammate at over a second a lap, who's romping away from his pursuers at over 1.5 seconds per lap.
That's the Ferrari garage. Not too much concern there on the face of Luca Colagiani, the team's press officer. Hisao Suganuma on the right there, the top man from Bridgestone, who's played such a key role in getting these tyres well suited to the Ferrari. Ted's down in the pits.
James, we were just seeing there on the screen the differences between Rubens Barrichello's lap times and Michael Schumacher's lap times. It's just a hunch, and it's probably wrong, but is there a possibility, Martin, that Rubens could be on a one-stop? He's consistently a second slower than Michael Schumacher, which is spot on for a one-stop lap time, but let's remember that he is also on the harder Bridgestone tyre, so that might account for it.
Yes, and sorry, Ted, just as you're saying that, we're watching Villeneuve finally making the move for 11th place on Alan McNish by getting good speed along the back straight, climbing up the hill to Lecombe and positioned his car nicely. Well, I sincerely hope Michael Schumacher's on, I think it's more likely he'd be on a 3-stopper and Rubens on a 2. The only thing that makes me think Rubens is not on a 1-stopper, Ted, is he got off the line very well. He did not appear to have a fat car with too much fuel on board off the line, because he had a very good sprint down to the first corner. So I think it's more likely that Michael's car is light with fuel rather than Rubens Barrichello is heavy. But sadly, I fear that Michael is just fine for fuel.
Well, Jacques Villeneuve started 12th on the grid, obviously had some sort of problem which we didn't see in the replay at the start, because he dropped down to 15th place, but he's managed to recover back to his original 12th place slot now, and obviously helped by Jenson Button retiring as well, and he's looking pretty aggressive, Jacques Villeneuve.
He is indeed, and Jacques Villeneuve likes to run his car like he wears his overalls, sort of very baggy at the back, dragging it along the ground almost, and he's really, we saw that action, slow-mo action replay of the back end of the BAR absolutely thumping the deck, and he's clearly not got too much wing on it today because it's screaming along the back straight. Michael Schumacher leads then on lap 15 by 12.4 seconds from Barrichello. Montoya third, 17 seconds behind Barrichello. Raikkonen, Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher in close company, rounding out the top 6.
Sato was 18th, so it's the guys, the smaller guys, if you like, who are coming in first, and we wait to see how many of the big guys are on a 2-stop strategy, which will bring them in sometime between lap 15 and 19, depending on how much fuel they're carrying. You can see again there, that fuel flap on the left-hand side of Raikkonen's car, flapping away in the breeze. There it goes. It's happened quite a bit throughout free practice. They have one on each side, of course, depending on whether they're on a clockwise or an anti-clockwise circuit.
Yeah, so it's very unusual for that one that's not used during the Grand Prix to come undone. And I think they're normally sealed, bolted down, so quite clearly a drama on that. And that will not help the airflow. I mean, it's not a big thing, James, but it certainly won't help the airflow of the rear wing of Raikkonen's car. Will not be adding to the performance, be sure of that.
Did something just fly off Raikkonen's car there? It wasn't a fuel flap, was it? Something just came skidding off as far as I could see.
I suspect it was a little bit of front wing because he was getting rather too close, as ever, to those bollards.
May well have been. McLaren mechanics there in their Star Wars outfits. They really do look like Darth Vader once they get the goggles down. Am I right? Did he knock something off? Or is it just a bit of the bollard? No, he did knock something off.
Yeah, he's had the front, either the front of the side fence of the front wing or the barge board. A little piece, a little corner of that's gone. Again, that won't help him either.
So he's closing down Montoya, but it's going to be a real battle of horsepower. BMW versus Mercedes. Throughout the season, BMW have had the edge on power. Mercedes have made some gains recently, allowing Raikkonen to get that bit closer, and indeed allowing him to do what he did yesterday in qualifying. This, though, is shaping up to be quite a good scrap, I think. This is the battle for third place. Lap 16 of the Belgian Grand Prix. You've got some flapping bodywork for Kimi Raikkonen. We've got a pit stop for race leader Michael Schumacher. He was 13.9 seconds ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello and 32 seconds ahead of Juan Montoya, so he should be able to get out in front of the Colombian, who's having quite a battle now with Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen's been able to get a little bit closer to him in the last couple of laps. Business as usual in the Ferrari garage, just making sure no debris. And Michael Schumacher pits then on lap 17. We've had a couple of back markers coming in, Felipe Massa and Takuma Sato, but Schumacher the first of the big hitters, and it looks like he's put a brand new set of tyres on for his second stint. But meanwhile, Rubens Barrichello now leading this race.
It's sensible strategy, isn't it? Anyway, Michael had plenty of new tyres left because he did one run less than everybody else in qualifying yesterday, and but running just a touch lighter, maybe 5-8 kilos lighter, just to help him get down to the first corner to ensure he led the Grand Prix. But quite clearly, Schumacher then on a 2-stopper in the lead Ferrari. Barrichello may pit immediately the next lap. So a very long lap here, of course. You don't have your window is very much reduced when the lap is a minute 47 and 4.3 miles. So you tend to have to, it tends to drive itself when you come in.
Well, that means that Michael Schumacher will have started this race with about 70 kilos of fuel, and he's put in about 56 kilos of fuel at that stop. Should take him through to about lap 32. Now, the other teams know that. Now they can see where he's going with his race strategy. They haven't yet shown their hand. Ferrari don't know yet how much fuel McLaren or Williams have got on board, but certainly the pace of Michael Schumacher would hopefully suggest he was carrying a little bit less than the rest. McLaren do have a tendency to run that little bit longer, don't they, in their first stints?
They traditionally have, you're absolutely right. But our entertainment this afternoon is very much going to come from 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. The 2 McLarens and the 2 Williams, excepting just cancel one of those Williams off the back of that, because Ralf Schumacher at the top of Les Combes has outbraked himself, I'd imagine, and lost the car on the way in, and he will have also lost a position to Jarno Trulli with that little drama. Barrichello does indeed pit the very next lap.
So, from the lead, Michael Schumacher will take the lead back then. Already has, in fact. All pretty tidy stuff. The clock running a little bit longer than perhaps was accurate for Rubens Barrichello, but he certainly looked as though he's fueled to go a bit deeper into the race than Michael Schumacher. Looks like the Renault boys are ready for a stop as well. We're certainly well into the 2-stop window, and hard to imagine that anybody would stop once here this afternoon. Louise, what can you tell us?
I understand, Jensen, that your Renault engine let you down. Is that the case?
I wouldn't have a clue yet. It just got very loud at turn 7, and that was it really. It lost a lot of power, and then it came to a halt before turn 13.
Tell us a bit about the start. It looked fairly lively.
I don't really know it. I don't really know what happened. We lost a lot of ground at the start. We normally make up quite a few places, but we didn't pull off the line very well. I was able to get past Salo into the first corner. I thought I might have had Eddie as well, but I didn't. I was on the outside, and that's how it stood, really.
Fun's over, bad luck.
Cheers.
Well, bad luck indeed for Jensen Button. His teammate Jarno Trulli, though, is up into 6th place with a World Championship point available to him at the moment after the spin of Ralf Schumacher. Trulli and Ralf Schumacher have just pitted and will, I think, obviously slip down the field before some of the others pit, and we're expecting also McLaren in any time soon and Williams. So we've seen Ralf Schumacher in, so quite clearly Montoya will pit at the end of this lap.
Yes, quite possibly what they're going to do is have a bit of a pit stop race, because Montoya and Raikkonen just 0.3 of a second apart on the racetrack. Coulthard 1.2 behind them. So McLaren and Williams look like they may well be going head-to-head here in the pit lane. That'd certainly be entertaining to watch. There's nothing wrong with the McLaren pit activity, nor the Williams. They're both very, very sharp indeed. Coulthard, though, could benefit from this as both of them come in together. Coulthard then goes up into 3rd place. Montoya comes in, has the lead coming into the pits. Will he have it going out again? Painfully slowly on the speed limiters as they come towards their boxes. Montoya knows where Raikkonen is, and in they come.
Take it away, Ted.
Kimi Raikkonen then in for his first stop. He'll be taking on about 55 kilos of fuel. McLaren trying to stretch it slightly longer than the Williams and the Ferraris. He's away. That's a decent enough stop. They didn't change his front wing, so obviously I think he might have clonked to Bollard a few laps ago, but obviously no problems to that front wing.
Anthony Davidson then off the racetrack, and seems as if he's probably lost the engine too. So for the second race, Davidson spinning out. Don't know where that is. And it is down there at Pouhon again, the corner where Raikkonen went wide early on. Oh yes, he just got in too deep, and luckily for him, the Minardi did not dig in anywhere and just skitted across the gravel trap and quite clearly out of the Grand Prix.
There is Anthony Davidson retiring again. You can see he's a little bit annoyed as he tries to disconnect himself from the various airlines and radio lines that go from the car into the helmet. This is lap 19 then. You can see the drivers who've made their stops and those who haven't. And look at Fisichella. We were talking about him a few laps ago, being down in 13th place and struggling. Don't quite know what strategy Jordan are using this afternoon, but if they have fueled him up, it certainly seems to be working for him, because he's got himself up into 6th place now from 13th just a few laps ago. Michael Schumacher leading. Coulthard is shown at the moment as being in 2nd place, just 3.7 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, but Coulthard has yet to make a stop. Is he coming in this time? Yes, he is.
Yes, and what I can't understand is that shot of Montoya we were looking at before Coulthard pitted. I couldn't see Raikkonen in the background. So Barrichello, who's already pitted, then retakes second place. Coulthard in the pit lane. Will this slingshot him ahead of Montoya and Raikkonen? He was about 1.5 down. He had a very good middle sector on his in lap, so it should be very, very close if it's a good pit stop. Away he goes, about 8.2, wasn't it? Look to the right-hand side, over the pit wall. Can we see Montoya and Raikkonen? Will this work out for David Coulthard? I think that, yes, it does, look. It does in terms of Raikkonen. It does not in terms of Montoya. So, for some reason, Raikkonen slipped back from Montoya on that outlap, so I couldn't see him in the background.
But it's interesting because he seemed to take on more fuel, Raikkonen, than Montoya in the stop. It wasn't a straight like-for-like pit stop. As Ted said, they did appear to put more fuel into Raikkonen's car. In a way, that's what's caused Coulthard to come out between them, because Coulthard seems to have taken on a bit less. Very interesting pit strategy here from the McLaren team. Net effect, Coulthard leaps teammate Raikkonen. He is now into 4th place. Montoya is back in 3rd place, and Raikkonen down to 5th. Fisichella, though, still in 6th place, yet to make a stop.
Yes, so we know that Raikkonen's got the fuel flap wandering around, which will damage the airflow to the rear wing of his car. We know he ripped a bit of front wing off, or barge board, some aerodynamic piece off at the bollards at the bus stop. So a slightly ailing car. It shouldn't affect him too much, those two. They're small issues, really, for Kimi Raikkonen, but they certainly won't be helping him.
No, these two McLaren drivers using different specifications of Michelin tyres, and certainly there was a lot of confidence in the Coulthard camp going into this race that he was on the better tyre than his young teammate. It certainly contributed to the 0.6 of a second that Raikkonen out-qualified him by, because the softer tyre certainly a slightly better performer. But in race conditions, Coulthard looks like he's got the right package. Can he now set about Juan Montoya? There is Montoya, he's closing him down, no doubt about that.
There's not too much love lost between Montoya and Coulthard at the moment. They've been trading insults, haven't they? And Coulthard saying Montoya is all bravery and no brains. Montoya responding, well, why doesn't he just worry about beating Raikkonen and forget about me? And there's a bit of a spat going on in the press, and of course they did trip over each other in the Nürburgring when Montoya dropped his car into turn 1 and took Coulthard with him, which didn't impress David Coulthard at the time very much. So if those two get together, could be a few fireworks this afternoon.
Indeed they could, and Montoya trying to avoid any kind of rendezvous with Coulthard. He's just set his personal best lap of the Grand Prix, pushing, that's how hard he's pushing. You can see it for yourself. He doesn't want any involvement with Coulthard here this afternoon. He's trying to break away and get clear. At the moment, 1.7 seconds clear of the Scotsman. And those two trailing the Ferraris now by half a minute. That's Sam Michael in the middle, chief strategist during the races for the Williams team, and the chief operations engineer. He's basically the guy who runs the racing side now, with Patrick Head keeping an overview over him. And certainly a remarkable career progression for Sam. He's only 30 years old. Very responsible job for such a young man.
Yeah, I worked with him at Jordan. Very, very bright guy, very determined, very ambitious and focused, and he's going to be a big star in that field in the future, no doubt about that. But watching these drivers climb all over the curbs, the grass, the bollards, and as ever, they will do anything in their power to make this as straight a line as possible around the Grand Prix circuit, as they do anywhere else in the world. Michael Schumacher then on lap 22. Leads by 17 seconds. Montoya's third, a further 20 seconds behind. Coulthard, Raikkonen in close company with a good view of him, but Fisichella then sixth, 8 seconds behind.
Yes, and the $10 million question is, when is Fisichella going to make his stop? Looks to me, Martin, as though he was on a one-stop strategy. And, well, you would do the same sort of thing if you had qualified what is potentially a very fast car down in 14th place on the grid. Very much out of position for Fisichella. So, Jordan, on the day when Richard Parry-Jones came here to put the record straight on exactly how forward this Jordan deal would be, looked like they're playing a good stroke here. Fisichella coming in then for his first stop of the afternoon on lap 22. And this is early in the one-stop stakes. He'll take on about 75 kilos of fuel. Yeah, that's pretty much bang on target for a one-stopper. But where will he emerge? And bearing in mind that the people he's racing against will all have to stop again. Could be worth watching for Fisichella on lap 22 of this 44-lap Belgian Grand Prix.
And it certainly explains then why Villeneuve was climbing all over the back of him with apparently the same engines, doesn't it? So Fisichella running a much fuller fuel load. So lap 22 it is now then. Michael Schumacher still leads by 17 seconds. Montoya third.
They've all made their stops before.
Yeah, I think you'll find that Fisichella's a little bit further down than that if you look, but let's wait and see. I think he was 8th because 2 cars passed him as he was trundling down the pit lane. I think we'll have to wait and see, James, when it all tumbles out, just how far down the field he went. But the 2 Saubers then line astern, Massa, Heidfeld, and Panis and Sato are in there somewhere. Sato looks like he's passed Panis behind them, but they're all fighting for last place, James.
Yep, you're absolutely right. There's Sato, just getting a bit of a lock-up. Computer sorting itself out now, and indeed Irvine is still 8th, Salo still 9th, De La Rosa still 10th. Villeneuve is in fact in front of Fisichella, so yes, the computer hadn't updated itself, I beg your pardon.
Ever edging out. Michael Schumacher must be getting quite close to having a complete pit stop in his pocket, mustn't he? 18-second lead. What does he need to get up to? 24, 25 seconds?
Yeah, about 27. About 27 seconds for a one stop. Sorry, for a 2-stop. Yeah, 25 seconds exactly.
Yeah, it's quite a long run, isn't it, on the speed limiter here? So it's longer than you might. It's a short pit lane with a very long speed limit zone.
Looks pretty tidy at the moment. Chasing his 6th win at the Belgian Grand Prix, and that will be quite an achievement. Only the really great drivers win here. Up through Eau Rouge pretty comfortably. 2 Saubers having a real old tussle though. Lap 24 of 44 here at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. You're looking at the scrap between the 2 Saubers of Nick Heidfeld and Felipe Massa. Massa in front of his older and more experienced teammate, as he has been throughout the weekend and particularly in qualifying yesterday. Now, we've seen Sauber employ some team orders in the past where they've asked Massa to get out of Heidfeld's way. Will they do that here today? I don't know, but they've certainly been going at each other in the last minute or so.
Well, Massa's not going to be very receptive. He's been given the tin tack, hasn't he? He's been booted out of there for next year. I'd be very surprised if Massa plays ball on that one. He'll be wanting to show that he's every bit as strong as Nick Heidfeld in a hope of ending up in one of the very few spare seats that are available for next season at this time, with Frentzen, of course, having taken his slot. So 2 drivers from Mönchengladbach in Germany in the same team. That's a marketing sort of nightmare, really, I'd have thought, for next year's Sauber.
Well, if you've got lots of German sponsors, it's probably a marketing dream as well. But interestingly, Massa there targeting the Toyota of McNish in more ways than one, because that is one possible seat for him for next year. There is a rumour that Toyota are keen to have someone from the Americas, whether it be North America or South America, in the second car alongside Olivier Panis. They've been talking to a number of Brazilian drivers, including Cristiano de Mata, currently leading over in America in the kart series. Also talking to Felipe Massa as well, and Antonio Pizzonia, who is currently the Williams test driver. Who knows? But strange in a way to have empty seats still unfilled this late in the season when so much is already filled up higher up the field. This is the scrap between the BAR and the Jordan, Fisichella and Panis. Fisichella slipped down to 15th place after the making his 1 stop. So although it was looking quite clever for him in terms of strategy around about lap 20, he hadn't really done enough when he made his stop to gain much of an advantage.
But he will have. I don't think he'll score any points, but he will have, because he doesn't have to stop again, and they've got to lose about 25 seconds. So if you look, 25 seconds in front of Fisichella moves him up an awful lot, probably up into 9th behind Irvine. So it may pay off, and if there's a bit of unreliability up front, he could still score a World Championship point. So he's completely out of kilter with the rest of the field, and looking strong, even if he's 15th out of 17 runners.
Indeed, he's got to make sure he doesn't get overtaken, though, by people like Olivier Panis, who's had a curious race, really. He was quite slow at the start. Anthony Davidson was keeping in touch with him, no problem in the Minardi, but Panis seems to have come alive in the last few laps, and he's carrying a lot less fuel than Fisichella at this stage of the race. So that scrap could well develop. Can Panis do to Fisichella what teammate Villeneuve did? Well, he's trying it even earlier. Villeneuve got him into Les Combes. Panis has a look into La Source.
Yeah, but Fisichella be a lot smarter to let him go through than run into him, because that will spoil his strategy, that's for sure. And I mean, we saw Fisichella really weaving across the racetrack earlier in the Grand Prix, and now we understand why, because he had a full fuel load, even if it is against the regulations, sort of an unwritten code amongst the drivers that you're only allowed to make one move across the track. He moves again right now to cover the inside line and leaves Panis nowhere to go. That's fair enough. That was absolutely on the numbers. What you can't do is sweep back again and run them onto the grass. Good fun, though.
Yeah, good fun, good scrap. No problem at all. All forgotten in the showers after the game. Giancarlo Fisichella refreshed, no doubt, from the holiday that he enjoyed during the summer break in Formula One. He's just bought himself a new motor yacht, I understand, which has 13 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. I hope he's got a big family, because otherwise he'd rattle around a bit on that with his wife and his one little baby, wouldn't he?
He would indeed. Be a bit of a queue for the bathrooms as well, by the sounds of it, on that boat. But there you go. Michael Schumacher's lead now over 20 seconds then. 20.9 seconds. He's probably just 5 laps away from having a complete pit stop spare where he can pit and rejoin already back in the lead. So Schumacher just waltzing away at the front, still 1.2 seconds faster than his teammate, and still 2.3 seconds faster than any other man on the racetrack. Montoya maintains third, Coulthard fourth, and they've dropped Raikkonen a bit. Raikkonen down to 2.4 seconds. Maybe those little aerodynamic pieces flapping around and flying off are finally beginning to punish Raikkonen's tyres.
Certainly Raikkonen not able to carry through in the race the promise he showed throughout free practice. Fastest on Friday, again on Saturday morning, and then mesmerising in qualifying yesterday, when he's second. There's Ralf Schumacher down in 7th place now, behind Jarno Trulli.
But catching him, look, we saw Ralf spin just before the pit stops and lose his 6th place. Trulli was 4.3 seconds behind him before he spun, and quite clearly Ralf lost a lot of time. Now he's beginning to haul Trulli back in again, so Ralf still with a chance of a World Championship point, but he's 11 seconds now between the behind the main Williams McLaren fight, and he took himself really out of contention with that one.
He did, didn't he? It's taking him some time, though. He's only nipping a 10th or 2 out of Jarno Trulli at the moment, and it's a while since we've seen Renault be on the same sort of pace as Williams. But at the moment, Montoya is the point man for the BMW Williams team. The pendulum swung away, didn't it, from him? Germany, Hungary, it was very much Ralf Schumacher. But here, again, this weekend, Montoya seems to have the edge, certainly in the race, over Ralf. And this the battle for 6th place, the final points playing position.
But I wonder why Williams only ever really seem to have one driver on song. It seems to be one or the other of them. They seem to be, as you said, it's very much a pendulum swinging. Unlike Ferrari and McLaren, who sort of tend to have their guys consistently delivering. Whether it's enough speed remains to be seen on any given weekend. But it seems as if Williams have got one car. Maybe they set them up completely differently, and one style tends to suit a racetrack more than another.
Well, they only had one 1-2 finish this season so far, Williams, and that was in Malaysia, where Ralf Schumacher won the race, was Montoya in 2nd place. Louise is down in the pits.
Anthony, you looked a wee bit frustrated with yourself about that one, is that right?
Sorry, I can't hear.
You looked a wee bit annoyed with yourself about that one, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it was totally my fault. After Mark had left the race, I don't know what happened to him, but I haven't seen him yet around. I guess he had some mechanical failure. After he had gone, I had no marker point anymore, and being the slowest one on the track is always difficult. So when Taku got ahead of me, I just thought, well, I don't want him to pull away, you know. So I used Taku as kind of a benchmark, and obviously he's a bit quicker, so I pushed too hard, and I didn't want to lose ground to him. You know, maybe emotion got the better of me after all last year as well, being his teammate, but it's one of those things. I mean, I'm so gutted not to have finished, because the car was good. I mean, the car was really drivable, and Michelin done a good job today.
Back to testing duties with BAR next week. Is that going to be a bit of a come down?
Maybe, yeah. But I always love driving the cars, and I love Monza as well, so I mean, it's good to get the morale back up after a poor performance like this.
Well, we hope to see you back at a Grand Prix very soon. Thanks, Anthony.
Anthony Davidson then, our young Brit. Curious philosophy really of placing himself against the others. You've always got to drive your own car, your own Grand Prix, and that's just down to experience. But I think at least with these two races, Anthony's put himself on the map, and everybody knows his name now, even if they haven't been spectacular Grand Prix. So you're watching Michael Schumacher slice through the field. He's now 4.3 miles ahead of some of these cars after just completing the 28th lap. I was sad to hear on F1 ITV yesterday during our qualifying show, Paul Stoddart saying Anthony Davidson will not be driving for Minardi in Monza.
Yes, absolutely. Alex Young is contractually bound to be in the car. It's where he made his debut last year for the Minardi team, Alex Young. One wonders whether this sabbatical of 2 races has given him a chance to get his head together and find a little bit more speed. Time will tell. All sorts of rumours swimming around that team that they may have an American in the car for Indianapolis. Brian Herter's name has been mentioned, former kart racer, used to race against Nigel Mansell over there. All sorts of possibilities for the end of the season for the Minardi team. But just incidentally, looking at Schumacher carving past Takuma Sato and hearing Davidson talking about his former teammate Takuma Sato, you get the sense that his seat isn't exactly safe at Jordan. I mean, Eddie Jordan this weekend has said, yes, we've got the Ford deal for next year. And although Sato very much a Honda man, doesn't mean he's out of the picture. What's your take on all that?
You have to take Eddie at face value, don't you? And he says, I've secured my 2 drivers, I know my 2 drivers for next year. Maybe you read between the lines, and what he didn't actually say is, I know exactly, or I'm going to tell you which my 2 are. Maybe he knows who they are and we don't, but the indication seemed to be that it is going to be Fisichella and Sato. So, you can't, the trouble is with this sport, you start to doubt everything you hear in the end.
And it's very difficult to second-guess any of the moves that happen here. Jarno Trulli, though, having his strongest race for quite some time. A points finisher at Monaco. His only points of the season so far. His teammate Jenson Button has had 4 very strong points finishes. So Trulli needs a good result here this afternoon. And the Renault team getting ready for a pit stop. Well, Jenson's out of the race, so it must be for Trulli. And that's going to play very nicely into the hands of Ralf Schumacher. We're getting now into the second stop window. Lap 29, lap 30, I beg your pardon, of 44. And that's when everybody will start to come in for their second stops. And a few of them seem to be struggling a little bit on the tyres that are under them, just struggling a little bit for grip. Massa, one of the early guys to pit first time round, and he does exactly the same thing second time. Massa rejoining, was 16th, and he will stay 16th, will he? No, so I think Sato's probably jumped him, but Sato will be making a pit stop very soon as well.
So we're expecting Trulli to stop on this lap then Ralf, if he gets the hammer down, has a chance to really regain that 6th place he threw away with the spin. We didn't see why he spun, we just saw the end result of it. Ferrari, I can see out of the window here, also getting ready in the pit lane for what we must assume is Michael Schumacher, your race leader, who's now 24 seconds ahead. And he's going to be rejoining right up there with Barrichello, but Barrichello will pit the following lap too. So this then is truly, does he come in the pit lane? Yes, indeed he does. Ralf Schumacher does not. Now he's got to make the difference, and that is a Ferrari getting traffic. So Michael probably getting traffic on the in-lap, but it's not going to affect his afternoon at all. Truly still making his way through the speed zone.
17 cars still running in this field. Towards the end of the season, you always get more reliability from these cars, and it makes it much more difficult to score points. That's why it's crucial today for Jarno Trulli to get a couple more on the board. Certainly if he's going to end up anywhere near his teammate Jenson Button in the final reckoning at the end of the championship. Tidy stop from Renault. You can see all the other pit crews out. Ferrari at the top. And this is a replay of, I presume, Michael Schumacher just having to work his way around with Toyota. Huge speed differentials. There he is in the pit lane. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, Michael Schumacher, here he comes on course for his 10th Grand Prix win of the season. The Bridgestone tyres come off, the new ones come on. He's aiming for about 8.5, 8.6 seconds. No problems with the fuel hose. It's off now and he's away. That's another decent stop.
It is indeed, and there was absolutely no need to panic, was there? Although, will this Toyota get out in front of him? No, it won't, luckily, and it won't quite run into him either. So the Toyota wanting to keep position against the Saubers, and the Saubers are really bearing down on that car. It was McNish, of course, but he also ran over the white line on the exit of the pit stop, of the pit lane too.
Yes, and there's been a serious warning from the race director, Charlie Whiting, about that throughout the weekend. It won't be tolerated, so McNish probably in a little bit of trouble. You can see that Barrichello is leading the race with Michael Schumacher in second place. Massa has got ahead of McNish, and McNish was racing both Saubers. That was why he was so anxious to get out of the pit lane in a hurry. He had Heidfeld behind him in a pit stop, and he managed to get in front of him, but then Massa got around him. Here you can see it for yourself. That's Heidfeld on the right, Heidfeld on the left, Massa coming on the right. Almost gets McNish down the hill, goes past him and takes, what does he take off in? 14th place.
Yes, he does. And McNish definitely ran the line. Whether he crossed it or not was too long a shot, but how satisfying is this for Michael Schumacher to have his teammate in front of him, knowing full well he has to stop again for fuel. So as we thought, it was just about a complete pit stop he had in hand, and he can now watch a bit of an off-colour Rubens Barrichello, you'd have to say, wouldn't you?
Yes, it's not been the greatest weekend for Rubens Barrichello, especially after on Thursday in interviews with the Italian media. He said, I'm the second best driver in Formula One. Words to the effect of, I'm the second best driver in Formula One after Michael Schumacher, which I seem to remember Eddie Irvine saying a few years ago. Rubens qualifying third on the grid here today, and he dives into the pits, bang on schedule for his second stop. Why were we talking about that white line on the pit lane exit? Well, the answer is, for those of you who've been watching the Grand Prix throughout the season, the blend line where cars coming out of the pit lane into the race traffic is very rigidly enforced. Drive-through penalties for anyone who crosses them. So let's hope for Alan McNish's sake he didn't cross that line today. I'm sure Rubens Barrichello won't come near it. Pretty tidy stop.
Yes, and he was some 31 seconds ahead of Montoya, so absolutely no threat at all from what will be a very lonely Rubens Barrichello out there. Williams, we think, will be getting ready soon for a pit stop too. So Michael Schumacher then, he's now on his 32nd lap, as you can see, totally 13 laps remaining, including this one.
Is it my imagination, Martin, or in the last few Grand Prix has the domination of Ferrari, Bridgestone seem to get even greater? They seem to, if anything, be pushing further away from Williams and McLaren, even though perhaps it doesn't necessarily show in qualifying. Ralf Schumacher in for the pit stop.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? I mean, quite clearly, Michelin, if you look at the bulk of the field, have a stronger tyre here, and still they can't match the Ferrari, sadly. So it does seem as if that Ferrari package gets ever stronger. I agree with you, James.
He's having some trouble getting out, though, Ralf Schumacher. That will be good news for Jarno Trulli, who made his stop earlier than Ralf Schumacher. And that certainly cost him a few seconds. Didn't seem to be able to get it moving.
No, 2 or 3 seconds at least, didn't it? So I don't think Ralf had done enough on his in-laps to his in-lap and his free laps. That'll be very close between himself and Jarno Trulli. Della Rosa's up there too in 7th at the moment, but he's yet to make his second stop. That's a bit of a false position, I think.
Where is Eddie Irvine, who was hoping for points this afternoon? Answer, in 10th place, but he's got 2 cars in front of him that have yet to stop again, Pedro de la Rosa being one of them, and Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR being the other. So Eddie still, on aggregate, is in 8th place and hoping that a couple of cars in front of him will either fall off or hit some sort of problem so he can get another point for Jaguar, which, after all the goings-on of the last few weeks, would certainly be very welcome indeed. Lap 33, Ralf Schumacher rejoined behind Villeneuve, who has yet to stop again. That means that Ralf is down in 9th place. Michael Schumacher 25 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Montoya 3rd, 4th Coulthard, 5th Raikkonen, 6th at the moment De La Rosa, but he has yet to stop again.
Yeah, the 2 McLarens really haven't done anything about Montoya in 3rd place, and Coulthard just dropped Raikkonen by 2.6 seconds now, so they'll both be needing tidy pit stops to keep their positions. But at the moment, they don't seem to be able to do anything about Montoya. They're all lapping absolutely identical times in 3rd, 4th and 5th. We haven't seen much of them, but they're 5 seconds apart, the 3 cars.
Yes, it's been a fairly tidy performance from Montoya this weekend. There's Eddie Irvine, not giving anything away about his plans for 2003 in any of the meetings with the press or discussions that he's had throughout this weekend. As Pedro de la Rosa, his teammate, makes a stop. Certainly rumours surrounding Eddie that he might have some sort of involvement in the Jordan setup next season. He seemed pretty relaxed about the whole thing. He'd like to carry on in Formula One, but he certainly doesn't want another season of making up the numbers, was what he was saying. And De La Rosa very close to crossing that line and comes out behind Sarlo. Those two were racing for 11th place. And De La Rosa losing out to the Toyota as in comes Panis from 13th.
Now the two Ferraris have finished their stops this afternoon. Schumacher's lead up to 26 seconds. But still then we've got Montoya, Coulthard and Raikkonen to make their second stops. At the moment they're not too far behind Barrichello, but Barrichello of course has now finished his stops. And look, Ralf Schumacher did not make it out in front of Jarno Trulli, so remains what currently is 9th, because Villeneuve's in there too and hasn't stopped yet. So Trulli did hold that position.
Yep, he was definitely advantaged by that stuttering exit from the pits of Ralf Schumacher. Hope for Montoya's sake, currently in 3rd place, that the same thing doesn't happen to him. This is pushing Coulthard and Raikkonen up into 3rd and 4th places, but they have yet to make their stops again. Montoya pits on lap 34 out of 44. 10 to go here in the Belgian Grand Prix as Takuma Sato tries to find the apex in the Jordan.
That brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it? Watching that thing bounce over there, remembering he's sitting on the floor of it. But Sato will be trying not to do that again. So Villeneuve slots into the pit lane then and leaves the fight between Trulli and Ralf Schumacher. They are now back into 6th and 7th.
Well, he's got a bit of a reputation, hasn't he, Jarno Trulli, so of not being necessarily the strongest racer. This is his chance to prove that reputation is unfounded as Ralf Schumacher closes on the back of him. Jacques Villeneuve pitting. He is running in, well, he's 8th coming in. Where will he be when he goes out? Around about 11th or 12th place. He's racing against De La Rosa, Fisichella, Panis. And there you see Ralf Schumacher closing down Jarno Trulli. Do you believe this reputation of Trulli's is well-founded or ill-founded?
Well, he's not a good racer.
Good qualifying, not such a great racer.
I created it, didn't I? From what I've said in the commentary, I don't know. He certainly seems to be a bit dismal on a Sunday afternoon compared to his spectacular qualifying laps. But he's certainly got a bit more urgency about him today. We saw him really having a go into the first corner of the Grand Prix, didn't we? And he certainly kept himself in contention to punish Ralf Schumacher for that spin. And, you know, at least he's having a decent fight this afternoon as Raikkonen makes his second stop of the afternoon.
From 4th place then, the man we had all hoped would take the fight this afternoon to Michael Schumacher from the front row of the grid. It hasn't really worked out that way for the young Finn. He's had bits of bodywork flying off the car. He's had a fuel filler flap open. His tyres have not really given him the performance he was hoping for. And he's also lost ground to Montoya through a bit of a wild ride through the Pouhon corner fairly early on. So it's not been the greatest afternoon for Raikkonen, but here's a chance for Ralf Schumacher. This the battle for 6th place, and you can see he's crawling all over the back of the Renault. He's certainly got a straight line speed advantage. That BMW engine considerably more powerful still than the Renault. The BMW rated to be one of the most powerful, if not the best, in Formula One at the moment. And Renault still very much getting to grips with the radical new layout of their engine. Flavio Briatore said a few weeks ago it was about 50 horsepower down on the top motors. Will we find out this afternoon? Will we get a graphic illustration of that as they exit Eau Rouge Radiant? You can see him closing, but he's not going to be able to do it before the braking zone.
Indeed, and that Renault didn't look too shabby at all, did it, down there? And this is a slow-mo rear view replay of the Eau Rouge corner. And that was before we saw them head up the straight. So it's in the middle sector that Ralf has the extra speed, but that's not where you need to be faster.
Indeed.
To overtake anyway.
Certainly, you certainly want it down the straight into the slow corner. It's not just about horsepower, though, is it, going down that straight? It's about the speed you carry into Eau Rouge. It's about all kinds of things. As into the pits comes Coulthard from 3rd place. Now, he's racing against Montoya and Raikkonen, don't forget. Ted.
Well, David Coulthard comes rocketing down the pit lane. He actually overstepped. He went in too hot into his box the last time. He's actually gone in a bit too hot again, but the mechanics seem to have adjusted very well. The new tyres are on, the fuel hose is off, and he's away. That's a very good stop. How does that compare with Raikkonen?
It's about a second faster, Ted. Plus, Coulthard did his fastest lap of the race while while Raikkonen was pitting. So where will that put Coulthard in relation to Montoya? What I want to know. He was 2.6 seconds behind Montoya before the pit stop. This is truly, and Ralf Schumacher still squabbling over 6th place. Everybody's now finished their pit stops for the afternoon, and will Coulthard get ahead of Montoya?
Well, I'm pretty sure that he's not ahead of Montoya, but he's not going to be far behind him. I think they've left Raikkonen behind, though, because Kimi Raikkonen had been losing ground before his second stop, but David Coulthard, with that blistering second stop from the McLaren team, has very much put himself in contention now to attack Kimi Raikkonen. 2 great scraps on the racetrack then, and we're hearing from the ITV pit crew that one of the McLarens has blown up. There it is, it's Raikkonen. Kimi Raikkonen's engine has let go in fairly spectacular fashion, so that removes him from the equation. And that moves Eddie Irvine ever closer to a points-paying position. He's now in 7th place with 7 laps to go.
Yes, indeed he is. So a chance of a Jaguar World Championship point this afternoon, and a very disappointed Kimi Raikkonen. And is that a locked wheel or an engine problem? That's a locked wheel. And for that particular Jaguar, but Kimi Raikkonen then will be seriously disappointed. His first ever front row grid slot, didn't really make too much of it, did he? He's not had a great afternoon, and made a mistake into the turn 8 or 9 when he's down the hill, and then damaged his front wing, and everything seems to have worked against him this afternoon. And then Jarno Trulli drops out of the race too, the second Renault to go out. We are now down to just 15 runners.
Indeed we are, and Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar now up into the World Championship points. Well, he scored 3 the first Grand Prix of the season, very lucky to do so, but he'd be the first to admit it after the big accident in the first corner. And now he looks set for some more here at the Belgian Grand Prix as Jarno Trulli. We look at a replay now of him pulling off the racetrack. Obviously something gone wrong in the inside of the car. He could tell the game was up, and he pulled right off. Bit of a wave for the crowd then. 7 to go here at Spa-Francorchamps. Michael Schumacher still leading by 20 seconds from Rubens Barrichello. And Montoya and Coulthard really the focus of attention now in the closing stages of this Belgian Grand Prix, as we take another look at the engine letting go in the back of Raikkonen's car. Huge cloud of smoke, and as you say, some oil down there as well. But a great scrap in prospect between Montoya and Coulthard in the closing stages.
AJ, nothing's set in concrete in Formula One. I mean, blow-ups, spit-offs, breakdowns, it's all changed.
Well, absolutely, and it's although this is a bit of an engine killer, this circuit, they are revving at quite high rev for a long time. So traditionally it has always killed quite a few engines. It's just happening a bit later on in the race.
Sad to see Raikkonen have so much bad luck.
Yeah, he's been magic all weekend, and it hasn't been rewarded for him, unfortunately.
Let's go back to the boys.
In 8th, just a few tenths of a second adrift. Behind them, 9th Fisichella and Villeneuve, also very close. So 1 or 2 very good scraps down the field, James. Not out of the front, unfortunately, but down the pack, they're working very hard just to get into the top 10.
Indeed they are. So it just shows you, as I was saying before, about the reliability issue. The closer you get to the end of the season, the more reliable these cars have become as the year has gone on. And the more difficult it becomes to score points simply by other cars in front of you breaking down. It's one of the main reasons why the smaller teams are against the idea of 3-car teams in the future, because if Williams, Ferrari and McLaren all ran 3 cars, there'd be absolutely no hope of scoring a point in a Jaguar, a BAR or a Toyota.
Doesn't stop them changing the point scoring system though, does it? I know it would upset history, but you didn't always just get 10 points for a win anyway. It used to be 9. So there's nothing to stop them adjusting the way they allocate points to address that situation.
Lap 39 of the Belgian Grand Prix into the closing stages then. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. And this is Felipe Massa blowing up on the start-finish line. That's a Ferrari engine, and the customer of the Ferrari team, Felipe Massa's, definitely left some oil, and that looks like De La Rosa, and looks like the car's sitting down at the back, Martin.
Yeah, right rear, maybe suspension failure or puncture. De La Rosa has stopped out on track, so we're now down to just, what is that, 13 or 14 runners. Some of them have not many laps old, so they're still shown as contenders at the moment on the computers. I think it's down to 13 runners in the Grand Prix. This is a good fight for 9th and 10th between Fisichella and Villeneuve. De La Rosa was in a cracking fight with Salo for 7th and 8th. They're the main fights on the racetrack. Coulthard's moved within 0.8 of a second at the back of Montoya for 3rd and 4th. So the two Ferraris well out front, but several good scraps all the way through the field.
Yes, indeed. Coulthard's been struggling a little bit to get on terms with Montoya in the early stage of the race, but here in the closing stages, it looks as though he's going to be able to give the Colombian a run for his money, and it should be quite an exciting showdown. Well, Jacques Villeneuve has been pretty racy all day. He's up into 9th place at the moment, having qualified in 12th, and he's certainly put the moves on a few people this afternoon. This, though, the scrap at the front. This is for the final podium position. Juan Montoya, 3rd for BMW Williams, 4th the McLaren-Mercedes of David Coulthard. And as Martin was saying just before, not an awful lot lost between these two at the moment. There have been some words in a few Grand Prix, and Montoya quite dismissive, and that's Fisichella's Honda, a huge blow-up. That's the 4th big Honda blow-up of the weekend, and they've got some top people here this weekend, so they'll be a bit disappointed with that. Some very, very important Japanese people in the motorhome. That really has launched itself, hasn't it?
That is a massive one, and that's the kind of blow-up that smashes the floor of the car and the gearbox, locks the rear wheels. You'll see him skidding around at the back end, almost as if somebody's put the perfect handbrake on the car and just stopped the rear wheels. Fisichella then, that's massive. That's all the bits and pieces chatting to each other in the middle. Then the oil gets in the action and catches fire on the exhaust pipes, and off you go.
It's more like a rocket on its way to space than a Formula One car. Ron Dennis there on the pit wall watching that. That's where the oil's gone down. You can see the track quite dirty in that area. You're wondering what those yellow stains are on the racetrack, incidentally. It's the floors of the cars. They run them very, very low here, and it's various places on the track's quite bumpy. The cars literally bottom out and leave this yellow mark on the racetrack. You see it particularly through Eau Rouge and certain other corners as well. It shows you just how low they run the cars to the ground. So 5 laps of the Grand Prix to go. This the scrap for 3rd place. Out front, the two Ferraris running clear. Eddie Irvine still in the points and going strongly for Jaguar. And the $10 million question is, when will Coulthard be able to attack Juan Montoya? Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Juan Montoya, though, looking for a decent result after a miserable time here 12 months ago. Qualified on pole, but then couldn't get the car off the line and ended up retiring from the Grand Prix. It's Panis's Honda engine blowing up. We haven't seen that. It's happening in real time.
That's news, that one. We're watching Ron Dennis, watching us, watching you there. And so another retirement from this Grand Prix then. Now we're down to 11 runners.
And another Honda engine blowing up. Number 5 for the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, they're pushing very hard, Honda, in the development program, trying to get things up to speed, trying to challenge the big boys, and maybe just pushed a little bit too hard, turned the wick up a fraction too much. And Olivier Panis doing what Giancarlo Fisichella did just a couple of laps ago, retiring from the Grand Prix with a blown engine. Lap 41. The gap from 1st to 4th, 49 seconds, as you can see, between Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard. And Ferrari really have stamped their authority over this Grand Prix, heading for another 1-2 finish in what has been a truly historic season for the Maranello team.
Yeah, Michael beginning to coast now. He's lapping some 5 seconds per lap. slower than his new lap record set in the early stages of the Grand Prix in the 1 minute 47. So Michael coasting to his 10th victory.
Lap 42 out of 44 here at Spa-Francorchamps. And look at this. Olivier Panis becomes the 5th Honda engine blow-up of the weekend, and another pretty comprehensive one, although not as big as the one for Fisichella just a couple of laps ago.
Absolutely not. So you've got to imagine then either a crankshaft failure or a conrod failure in there, letting something go big time inside the engine. And the trouble is with those sort of blow-ups, James, is, you know, when they... And look at Coulthard having a little look around Montoya. Coulthard is much faster in the first sector and the last sector, but he loses touch in the middle. He doesn't seem to have the confidence in those downhill high-speed left-handers with the back end of the car for whatever reason. And he just loses touch with Montoya, and it takes away his opportunity to overtake. So these two looking pretty glued together to the end of the Grand Prix. But the point I was going to make with those massive engine blow-ups, it's so difficult then for them to analyse what went wrong when they get them back to the engine shop.
Well, if you're just joining us, it's been very much a Ferrari show here this afternoon. Off the start line, Kimi Räikkönen second place, not able to capitalise. He was passed by Rubens Barrichello for that second place. He was then passed by Juan Montoya for third, and by David Coulthard as well. So Räikkönen's promise from qualifying not carried through in the race, and his engine blew up just a few laps ago. The closing stages have been all about the battle between Williams and McLaren in the form of this battle, Montoya and Coulthard. It's the final podium position battle as we have a look at Jacques Villeneuve. Bollard has certainly seen some action today, hasn't it? It's just a stump, huge, bottoming out. You can see how hard the drivers are hitting these curbs. On board now with David Coulthard chasing down third place man Montoya. Just 2 laps to go.
This is a chance then, the final chance to join the Ferrari loving on the podium. This is for third place. Montoya then is quite clearly third and ahead of us, but we've seen the McLaren faster through the first sector of the lap. Absolutely flat out, no problem at all, but just a little bit out of the slipstream, hooking 7th gear at Raidillon on the top, and we're nowhere near it close enough for a go. But look, we're getting sucked along in the invisible slipstream. We're better on the brakes, and now Montoya seems to pull away further down the hill in the Pouhon corner. He seems to have a better rear end on the car. He seems to be able to attack those. Oh look, he's locked his right front, but he can hook up to a late apex, no problem. Got away with it. Now hopefully we'll stay on board with Coulthard and see where and why Montoya is able to take some time out of us down this hill. Here we go. And watch him just disappearing into the distance. He carries more speed into the first part, and that's costing David Coulthard. Look, we're looking at a white speck all of a sudden instead of a gearbox of a Williams, and that's costing Coulthard the chance to overtake this afternoon.
Very frustrating for the Scotsman. He's close enough in certain parts of the track, but you can see for yourself, as Martin illustrated there, how difficult it is to live with the Williams through that double left-handed corner, which is rather humorously called Pouhon. At the front, though, untroubled Michael Schumacher, heading for Ferrari's 5th 1-2 finish of the season, and more importantly for him, the record. 10th Grand Prix victory in a season, never been done before. He's done 9 a few times. Nigel Mansell famously did 9 wins in a season back in 1992. But this is going to put the record books into a different level altogether, if he can just keep going for one more lap.
And still then Michael Schumacher has not finished out of the top 3, and there's only 1 third place in that in every single Grand Prix this year. The reliability certainly of his Ferrari has been stunning, hasn't it? I mean, a 100% perfection, and it's going to be a formation finish. He's letting Barrichello cruise up to the back of him for the end of the Grand Prix.
Yes, you're going back 19 races to find the last time that Michael Schumacher retired from a Grand Prix. Very quickly, driver of the day. No one's really stood out today. Anybody caught your eye?
That's not been a sensational race, and I can't really think of anybody putting in sensational performances. If you flick down the screen, obviously Räikkönen was the star of qualifying, but hasn't had a great afternoon. Michael really has just whipped them, hasn't he? I mean, it's got to be Michael Schumacher. He's just made him look a bit silly, frankly.
He's certainly driven particularly well here this afternoon. He's nursed his car when he needed to. He's pushed like mad when he needed to. Remember back to the early stages of the Grand Prix, where he was setting fastest lap after fastest lap, and every sector time coming up on our screens was purple, which means the fastest of the entire race. Looking just down into his cockpit, into the bus stop for the final time. Rubens Barrichello closing up behind him. And once again, for the 6th time in the Belgian Grand Prix, and a record 10th time in his career, he wins the 10th win of the season. A fantastic drive by Michael Schumacher. Reliability, once again, the key for Ferrari. It's their 5th 1-2 finish of the season, and they've made it look so easy. Juan Montoya is going to hold on for 3rd place ahead of David Coulthard, who just couldn't get close enough in the final stages of the Grand Prix. And Eddie Irvine is going to score a point for Jaguar, which is terrific news for him. His first point, and Jaguar's first, since the Australian Grand Prix, the very first Grand Prix of the season. And also Ralf Schumacher going to slide in 5th place as well, after that mistake which dropped him down earlier in the Grand Prix. Well, the now familiar sight of Michael Schumacher, the hug of the two teammates. Big congratulations from Rubens Barrichello. Historic moment then for Schumacher, 10 wins in a season. And really all he deserves from the way he and Ferrari have been going throughout the year.
Absolutely. Nigel Mansell here to witness it for himself and to wish Michael good luck. I think the inevitability of that record going of 10 races or more in one Grand Prix season might end up as sort of 12 or 13 yet.
And they're so far ahead, they're already out of the cars, helmets off, congratulating each other, and Eddie Irvine comes through to collect the final points paying position. That's a pretty graphic illustration, isn't it?
It is, but they're not lapped, are they? Those guys are still out. Although it was a long lapper, you tend to have to see less lapping. So Irvine then coming in unlapped and with another World Championship point, putting them up to 4 World Championship points for the Jaguar team. So a solid afternoon from them. Good drives, I think, from Montoya and Coulthard. A poor afternoon for Ralf Schumacher. Very solid attempt from Irvine in 6th place.
And there we are, Michael Schumacher. Win number 10. Jonesy, unbelievable, isn't it? 10 wins in one season.
Well, he's just about done it all now, Daz, hasn't he? I mean, really, I think there's only one other record he can go for now, and that's the most amount of pole positions, and that's it.
Stand by for the anthem. Sort of, the mind boggles where his records are going to end.
Well, exactly. I mean, if he sticks in Formula One for the next 3 or 4 years and Ferrari can stay at the sort of pace that they've got, I mean, it is. It's mind-boggling. Unbelievable. But, you know, at the end of the day, without having to put the handbrake on Ferrari, I would like to see Williams and McLaren and Toyota's done a good job. They finished 2 cars in the top 10 tonight, which was pretty good. You know, I'd like to see them perhaps close that gap a little bit because at the moment, Ferrari are just light years ahead of anybody.
Good result for Jaguar.
Excellent, yeah. I mean, it was a pity about De La Rosa's. It looked like a suspension that might have gone on the car. Otherwise, they would have had 2 cars perhaps in the top 6, certainly the top 10. And it's good to see them get a point because that new front suspension's obviously working for them and they've got an aerodynamic package at the back. So they're making some progress at long last, thank goodness.
Honda, disaster, 5 blown engines. I mean, that's a lot of money.
You mean, oh, big mistake. Yes, it's
A lot of money.
a bit of hair tearing out in Tokyo, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's just so sad to see too. But Mercedes too, I mean, they've had their fair share of blow-ups. Ferrari, I mean, really, Schumacher's car, as was said in the commentary, has just been unbelievably reliable.
Yeah, it's just... I mean, they've just got their act together so well. I mean, it's just an unbelievably well-oiled machine.
Ross Brawn's copying plenty up there.
And see, once again, you looked at Schumacher's hair when he hopped out of the car. It wasn't even wet. You know, he's superbly fit.
5 times a 1-2 finish. I mean, that in itself is remarkable.
It is, absolutely.
Now you've had a look at the new circuit, your thoughts?
Oh, well, I think, you know, Eau Rouge, I think they've probably taken a little bit of a character out of it, and like they're all just going through their flat chat now. Well, there's the results. Michael Schumacher had another win from Barrichello, his teammate. Pablo Montoya in 3rd, Coulthard 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th, recovering to get back up there to get 2 points. And the Drivers' Championship, Michael Schumacher, well, look at that, 122 over Barrichello's 51, Montoya 44, Ralf Schumacher 42, David Coulthard 37, and Raikkonen 20 in 6th spot.